The room smelled like old money and fresh grief. Mahogany walls, leather chairs, a lawyer named Gerald who charged $400 an hour to read words that a dead man had spent a lifetime choosing. I sat in the corner chair, the one closest to the door, the one I always chose at family gatherings, because it made leaving easier. Victoria sat at the center of the table, wearing black Chanel that cost more than my monthly rent. Her hair perfect. Her mascara not even considering the option of running. Gerald cleared his throat and began reading. I already knew I wasn't getting much. Grandpa Harold had never been a dishonest man, and in his final weeks, when I visited him every Tuesday at Riverside Care, he would hold my hand and look at me with those gray eyes that had seen everything, and say, "Sophia, baby, trust the process." I didn't know what that meant. I thought it was the morphine. The numbers landed on Victoria like warm rain. The Westfield Mansion on Birchwood Drive. Bennett Construction Group, valued at $11 million. 400 acres in rural Tennessee. The investment portfolio. The offshore accounts. $22 million, give or take. Gerald kept reading, and Victoria kept getting richer with every sentence. And I watched her hands grip the armrests like she was writing something magnificent. Then Gerald said my name. To my granddaughter, Sophia Ann Bennett, I leave the red toolbox currently stored in the garage of my home on Birchwood Drive. The room went quiet, the way rooms go quiet before something breaks. Victoria laughed first. It wasn't the polite kind. It started in her chest and came out full and open and deliberate, the way she had always laughed when something was meant to wound. My mother looked at the table. My father looked at the window. Gerald looked at his papers. And Victoria looked directly at me and said, "Grandpa left you exactly what you're worth." I didn't cry. I smiled. Just slightly. Just enough that she noticed and didn't know what to do with it. I need to go back, because none of this makes sense without the beginning. Victoria Bennett has been the golden child since the day she arrived on this earth 4 years before me, and apparently used all the available gold up. She was beautiful in the effortless way that certain women are beautiful, the kind that gets photographed well and believed automatically. She told stories that weren't true, and told them so confidently that the truth felt rude for showing up. She borrowed money she never returned, and she borrowed credit she never deserved, and she borrowed the entire narrative of our family and made herself the hero of every chapter. My parents didn't see it, or didn't want to. Our father, Robert, built his small fortune on Harold's early investment and spent the rest of his life trying to earn the old man's approval by proxy, which meant giving Victoria everything she pointed at. Our mother simply loved her firstborn, with the irrational totality that some mothers reserve for the child who came first. I was fed. I was clothed. I was functionally raised, but I was not seen the way Victoria was seen, and by the time I understood the difference, I had already learned to be invisible. Victoria's college was paid for. Mine was loans and a night job at a hotel front desk where I checked in strangers at 2 a.m. and studied accounting between arrivals. Victoria got a car on her 16th birthday. I got a bus pass and a lecture about responsibility. Victoria called our parents when she needed something, and they answered on the first ring. I called when I had something to give, and they were suddenly always busy. The one exception was Grandpa Harold. Harold Bennett was 78 when he died, a man built from Tennessee clay and hard mathematics, who had started his construction company with $1,200 and a truck that broke down every third Tuesday. He watched everything. That was his gift and his weapon. He sat at the edges of family dinners with his coffee going cold and his eyes going nowhere in particular. And you might think he wasn't paying attention, but Harold was always paying attention. He saw Victoria lie to our father about where the money went. He saw her forge a signature on a loan document when she was 26. He saw her divert funds from a commercial project in Atlanta into a private account she controlled, pocket the difference, and blame a supplier when the work failed inspection. He saw our parents choose her version of every story, every single time. And he saw me absorb all of it quietly and keep moving. He never confronted anyone directly. He took notes instead. Literal notes in leather journals with dates on the spines, written in his small, precise handwriting. He documented everything. Dates, amounts, account numbers, names. 4 years of evidence, organized by a man who had built an empire by paying attention to details that other people dismissed. He left all of it to me in a red toolbox. 3 days after the reading of the will, I drove to Birchwood Drive while Victoria was in the Hamptons celebrating her inheritance. The toolbox was exactly where Harold said it would be, underneath a layer of actual tools, so it would pass a casual glance. The combination lock opened to the numbers he had mailed me in a birthday card 2 years earlier. Inside, 4 leather journals, a sealed manila envelope, a USB drive, and a letter with my name on it. He had documented $1.4 million in diverted funds, falsified records across 2 fiscal years. Bank statements, emails, scanned contracts with altered figures. His personal attorney, Patricia Hollis, had already reviewed everything and confirmed it was sufficient for criminal fraud charges and civil recovery. He had not acted because he wanted me to have the choice. That was the moment I stopped being passive. I spent 6 weeks doing something Victoria never expected from me, because she had spent 31 years not taking me seriously. I used my accounting background and every skill I had built during those years she was being handed things, and I reconstructed the entire financial trail. I found 2 additional diversions Harold had missed. I built a case that was not just sufficient, it was overwhelming. And then I waited for the right moment, because timing is everything. And Harold taught me that without ever using those words. Victoria gave me the moment herself, the way she always gave me things without meaning to. She announced a celebratory gala, the Bennett Family Legacy Dinner, she called it, a black tie event at the Langham Hotel in downtown Chicago to honor Grandpa Harold's memory and introduce herself as the new face of Bennett Construction Group to investors, board members, partners, and press. She sent me an invitation with a handwritten note at the bottom that said, "You should come. It's good for people to see the whole family together." She wanted me in the room as furniture, as proof that everything was fine, as the quiet sister in the corner who made her look magnanimous just by existing. I RSVP'd yes. I spent the 2 weeks before the gala preparing with Patricia Hollis and 2 forensic accountants I retained personally. I prepared a document package, clean, organized, irrefutable. And I made 3 phone calls to the 3 board members who had already requested a governance review, who were attending the gala, who had been waiting for exactly this kind of documented evidence before they moved. The night of the gala, Victoria stood at the podium in a red dress that cost $12,000 in front of 200 people who represented everything Harold had built. And she gave a speech about legacy and vision and the future of the company. She was magnificent. She always was. She could sell anything, including herself. And for about 4 minutes, she was selling it perfectly. I was sitting at table 9, near the back, in a black dress I had owned for 3 years. During the applause after her speech, while Victoria was accepting congratulations at the podium, Patricia walked to the 3 board members at table 2 and placed a folder in front of each of them. Quietly, without announcement, the way you deliver something that doesn't need introduction. I watched the first board member open his folder. I watched his face change. Victoria was still smiling at the room when Richard Calloway, the board chairman, stood up and said, in a voice that carried across the entire ballroom, "Victoria, we need to adjourn to the private dining room. Now. This cannot wait." The room shifted. 200 people felt it simultaneously. That specific atmospheric change when something is wrong, in a way that is about to become public. Victoria looked at Richard. She looked at the folders. She looked across the room and found my face at table 9. And I watched her understand everything in a single second. All of it. The toolbox, the journals, the 6 weeks I had spent while she was buying boats and renovating mansions, the phone calls I had made, the meeting she had walked directly into while standing at her own podium. I did not smile. I just looked at her, the way Harold used to look at things he had been watching for a long time. She tried to recover. She said there must be some misunderstanding. She said the documents were being reviewed out of context. She said her grandfather would have wanted the family to handle matters privately. The board chairman said they would discuss what Harold would have wanted in the private dining room, with the attorneys who were already waiting there. And he said it in the tone of a man who was done with the conversation. Victoria walked off that stage, and she did not come back. The fraud findings went public within 3 weeks. 1.6 million in diverted funds, 2 fiscal years of falsified records, 1 pending criminal referral. The mansion on Birchwood Drive went on the market in April. The friends who had celebrated with her in the Hamptons developed urgent prior commitments. The board voted to suspend her authority within 72 hours of the gala. My parents called me in March. My father said he hoped I knew they had always loved us both equally. My mother said she was sure Victoria must have had her reasons. I listened completely. I thanked them for calling. I said nothing else, because I have always been good at that. The board offered me a restructuring role in February. I accepted. I called Dennis, Harold's former project manager, first. I rehired 7 of the 11 employees Victoria had terminated. I made decisions slowly, with the full weight of available information, the way Harold had taught me by example, without ever explaining the lesson. On the 1-year anniversary of the reading of the will, I went back to the garage on Birchwood Drive, which the estate had retained after the settlement. I sat on the floor with the red toolbox open beside me, and I read his letter one final time. The last line was the one I had carried with me every single day since I first found it. I wasn't giving you tools. I was giving you the means to rebuild. I folded the letter carefully. I placed it back inside. I closed the lock. Then I stood up, walked into the building that had my grandfather's name on it, and I got to work.